Revelations 12. And when the dragon found himself cast down to earth, he persecuted the woman who had given birth to the child. But she was given 2 wings like those of a great eagle, to fly into the wilderness to the place prepared for her, where she was cared for and protected from the serpent, the dragon, for 3.5 years. And from the serpent's mouth a vast flood of water gushed out and swept towards the woman in an effort to get rid of her. But the earth helped her by opening its mouth and swallowing the flood. Then the furious dragon set out to attack the rest of her children, who were all keeping God's commandments and confessing that they belonged to Jesus. He stood waiting on an ocean beach. Revelations 13. And now in my vision, I saw a strange creature rising up out of the sea. It had 7 heads and 10 horns, and 10 crowns upon its horns. And written on each were blasphemous names, each one defying and insulting God. This creature looked like a leopard, but had bear's feet and a lion's mouth. And the dragon gave him his own power and throne and great authority. I saw that one of his heads seemed wounded beyond recovery, but the fatal wound was healed. All the world marveled at this miracle and followed the creature in awe. They worshipped the dragon for giving him such power, and they worshipped the strange creature. Where is there anyone as great as he? They exclaimed. Who is able to fight against him? Then the dragon encouraged the creature to speak great blasphemies against the Lord, and gave him authority to control the earth for 42 months. All that time he blasphemed God's name and his temple and all those living in heaven. The dragon gave him power to fight against God's people and to overcome them, and to rule over all nations and language groups throughout the world. And all mankind, whose names were not written down before the founding of the world in the slain Lamb's book of life, worshipped the evil creature. Anyone who can hear, listen carefully. The people of God who are destined for prison will be arrested and taken away. Those destined for death will be killed, but do not be dismayed. For here is your opportunity for endurance and confidence. Then I saw another strange animal, this one coming up out of the earth, with 2 little horns like those of a lamb, but a fearsome voice like the dragon's. He exercised all the authority of the creature whose death wound had been healed, whom he required all the earth to worship. He did unbelievable miracles, such as making fire flame down to earth from the sky while everyone was watching. By doing these miracles, he was deceiving people everywhere. He could do these marvelous things whenever the first creature was there to watch him. And he ordered the people of the world to make a great statue of the first creature, who was fatally wounded and then came back to life. He was permitted to give breath to the statue and even make it speak. Then the statue ordered that anyone refusing to worship it must die. He required everyone, great and small, rich and poor, slave and free, to be tattooed with a certain mark on the right hand or the forehead, and no one could get a job or even buy in a store without the permit of that mark, which was either the name of the creature or the code number of his name. Here is a puzzle that calls for careful thought to solve it. Let those who are able interpret this code. The numerical values of the letters in his name add to 666. Then I saw a lamb standing on Mount Zion in Jerusalem, and with them were 144,000 who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. Oops! Revelations 14. I heard a sound from heaven like the roaring of a great waterfall or the rolling of mighty thunder. It was the singing of a choir accompanied by harps. This tremendous choir, 144,000 strong, sang a wonderful new song in front of the throne of God and before the 4 living beings and the 24 elders. And no one could sing this song except those 144,000 who had been redeemed from the earth. For they are spiritually undefiled, pure as virgins, following the Lamb wherever he goes. They have been purchased from among the men on the earth as a consecrated offering to God and the Lamb. No falsehood can be charged against them. They are blameless. And I saw another angel flying through the heavens, carrying the everlasting good news to preach to those on earth, to every nation, tribe, language, and people. Fear God, he shouted, and extol his greatness, for the time has come when he will sit as judge. Worship him who made the heaven and the earth, the sea and all its sources. Then another angel followed him through the skies, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she seduced the nations of the world and made them share the wine of her intense impurity and sin. Then a third angel followed them, shouting, Anyone worshipping the creature from the sea and his statue and accepting his mark on the forehead or the hand must drink the wine of the anger of God. It is poured out undiluted into God's cup of wrath, and they will be tormented with fire and burning sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and the Lamb. The smoke of their torture rises forever and ever, and they will have no relief day or night, for they have worshipped the creature and his statue, and have been tattooed with the code of his name. Let this encourage God's people to endure patiently every trial and persecution, for they are his saints who remain firm to the end in obedience to his commands and trust in Jesus. And I heard a voice in the heavens above me saying, Write this down. At last the time has come for his martyrs to enter into their full reward. Yes, says the Spirit, they are blessed indeed, for now they shall rest from all their toils and trials, for their good deeds follow them to heaven. Then the scene changed, and I saw a white cloud, and someone sitting on it who looked like Jesus, who was called the Son of Man, with a crown of solid gold upon his head, and a sharp sickle in his hand. Then an angel came down from the heaven and called out to him, Begin to use the sickle, for the time has come for you to reap. The harvest is ripe on the earth. So the one sitting on the cloud swung his sickle over the earth, and the harvest was gathered in. After that, another angel came from the temple in heaven, and he also had a sharp sickle. Just then, the angel who has power to destroy the world with fire shouted to the angel with the sickle, Use your sickle now to cut off the clusters of grapes from the vines of the earth, for they are fully ripe for judgment. So the angel swung his sickle on the earth and loaded the grapes into the great winepress of God's wrath. And the grapes were trodden in the winepress outside the city, and blood flowed out in a stream 200 miles long and as high as a horse's bridle. Revelations 15. And I saw in heaven another mighty pageant, showing things to come. 7 angels were assigned to carry down to earth the 7 last plagues, and then at last God's anger will be finished. Spread out before me was what seemed to be an ocean of fire and glass, and on it stood all those who had been victorious over the evil creature and his statue and his mark and number. All were holding harps of God, and they were singing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb. Great and marvelous are your doings, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are your ways, O King of ages. Who shall not fear, O Lord, and glorify your name? For you alone are holy. All nations will come and worship before you, for your righteous deeds have been disclosed. And then I looked and saw that the Holy of Holies of the temple in heaven was thrown wide open. The 7 angels who were assigned to pour out 7 plagues then came from the temple, clothed in spotlessly white linen, with golden belts across their chests. And one of the 4 living beings handed each of them a golden flask filled with the terrible wrath of the living God who lives forever and ever. The temple was filled with smoke from his glory and power, and no one could enter until the 7 angels had completed pouring out the 7 plagues.